Hey everybody, welcome back. This is some guy named Rob once again with a breakdown of the Royal Rumble 2018. If I seem a little bit more high energy with a little bit more pep in this particular instance or episode or video or podcast or whatever the hell you want to call it, it's because I've had my first coffee of the morning. I've had a bit of time to kind of wake up a little bit more, having gotten home quite late from Lee's place, and I'm feeling a little bit more energetic now that I've gotten the first part of this kind of done. Before I continue with the final three matches of the night, because believe it or not, we're only halfway through the card at this point. There was one thing that I'd forgotten to mention, which I thought was incredibly, incredibly cool, and or funny and or wonderful. Um, in the Royal Rumble men's matchup, which is we get to a point in the match where, and I'm not sure if it's at the final four or the final three phase, where the the two men that are left standing in the ring, everybody else is kind of knocked down in the corner, and they're hurt. They've been worked over, and they're recovering. They're catching their breath. You've got John Cena and Roman Reigns in the middle of the ring, and everybody is booing them or doing their best to boo them out of the building. And John Cena is, doing the point to the WrestleMania sign and trying to pump up Roman Reigns, saying, "Don't listen to these guys. These guys suck. They're telling the crowd to shut up." Um, and the entire Philadelphia crowd breaks out into a "You both suck" chant. Um, it's just a "You both suck" chant for about a good solid minute. And at one point you get the wider shot from the camera side that takes care of the side of the ring, and you can see people in like the fifth row flipping these two off in the ring, screaming at the top of their lungs, "You both suck," just flipping off John Cena and Roman Reigns. I thought it was pretty damn funny. Okay. That being said, really, really happy that they didn't screw this match up. They gave it to Shinsuke Nakamura. I think he can really use the win. And by the way, if you want to see what kind of wrestling match you might be in for, that, or maybe not the same match, but definitely the caliber of match that you can expect, go online, do a search. AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Wrestle Kingdom 10. Watch that match. Even watch 5 minutes of that match. This is the type of headline match that you can have at WrestleMania. This could be one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. I'm not. This is not hyperbole here. This is not 50% of the offense by the Usos was super kicks type of hyperbole. These guys are amazing, and they've worked together before, and they put on a very high quality match. So go and check it out. Okay, moving on. Our next match, Seth Rollins versus, sorry, no, actually, you know what? That's pretty accurate. Seth Rollins versus The Bar for the Raw Tag Team Championship. Jason Jordan was a complete non-factor in this match. Now, I've heard that he may be nursing an injury, and that was one of the reasons why he ended up being taken out of the match by running him into a ring post early on. I will say again, this match, wow, where to begin with this match? First of all, placed this probably could have been the opener, should have been the opener. Um, Basically because one, spoiler alert, well, obviously, Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins lose the tag titles to the Bar. And secondly, with the injury, the injury in air quotes to Jason Jordan, you could just get it out of the way. Seth Rollins put on an amazing match on his own against two guys, and the crowd was dead. Remember how I said in the last video that you got this raucous crowd in Philadelphia to put a pin in that? Well, I'm pulling the pin back out. This crowd was dead. You could hear that pin that I just pulled out drop to the floor, and it would sound like a bomb going off in that building. They were just super quiet. and Rollins was hitting, sling blades, blockbusters, the Falcon Arrow, all of his main spots, suicide dives. He was carrying this entire match on his back, and the crowd just sat on their hands and did nothing. They were dead silent. It was unbelievable. Um, the match from a technical point of view was very good, although I have to say WWE complete dick move, by the way, of selling a head injury for Jason Jordan as the reason why he wasn't able to participate in the match, because he was run into one of the outside ring posts or the outside bits of plastic that make a lot of noise. And at one point, Rollins crawls over to the corner. Jason tags himself in. He steps into the ring. He Watuzis around like he's dizzy, holds his head, tags himself back out, and walks away. Uh, for those of you who don't know, WWE is in a very massive lawsuit regarding concussions. And for them to sell a concussion type injury as the reason why Jordan wasn't able to get into the match was really I was really, really bad on their part. But whatever, it was done. The Bar are once again tag team champions for the fourth time. Very good match, very dead crowd, very confusing. This didn't belong here. This was the exact wrong place to put it on the card, especially since three of the guys had already wrestled in the Rumble, and you could tell that they weren't as fresh as they could have been. And the whole thing with Jason Jordan being a complete non-factor, this is one you should have just gotten over with at the beginning, and you could have actually set up things throughout the night. With Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins, you actually could have had Jason Jordan come out during the Rumble, try to help Rollins, and ended up getting him eliminated. So this was a wasted opportunity all around. We get to our triple threat match for the WWE Universal Championship, which, by the way, is one of the dumbest names for a title belt that I can think of. You know what? The Universal Championship reminds me of, if anyone out there has ever looked at some of those e-feds or like those role play e-booking sort of fantasy booking type of federations where they come up with really stupid names for titles, or like those really, really convoluted NWA titles that they used to have back in the day, like the Mid-South Junior Heavyweight State Championship or whatever. It reminds me of that. It's just weird and convoluted. This match lasted all of like 4 minutes, and I think 3 minutes of it was Paul Heyman introducing Brock Lesnar. This match was terrible. This was the worst match of the night. It was the most predictable, and it was boring. For all of the carnage that this match had, two broken tables, multiple chair shots, uh, multiple destroyed announcer tables, the ring steps being dismantled practically, um, and bodies flying everywhere, like guys being thrown into barricades and stuff. This was a boring, boring match. I don't know if they thought that this type of like breaking of the furniture would go over really well in the former home of ECW, that they would get the crowd behind, but the crowd just kind of was like, all right, well, that happened. And that's kind of how Lee and I were. We knew that Kane was going to take the pin. Um, we knew that it was going to be Brock Lesnar retaining. We knew that Braun Strowman was still going to look really strong, even though the way that they got him out of the ring long enough for Kane to get pinned was really stupid. It was basically just a bump off the apron. It wasn't like he was smashed with a chair or he was pinned under a table, which was a spot that they had done earlier in the match. So, really, the most entertaining or interesting parts of this match were, one, Paul Heyman's introduction of Brock Lesnar, and the second was a really, oh, wow, really stiff knee to the side of Brock Lesnar's head. That really looked like it rocked him, and then Brock Lesnar smacked Braun Strowman with a really stiff punch. Um, and it was, part of it, You knew that something was going down because Brock Lesnar audibly swore on the broadcast to the point where they had to censor it because I think they were running with the 7-second delay. But yeah, Brock Lesnar let an F bomb drop of some form or in some shape or form, and it had to get censored out of the pay per view. Those were the two only interesting and or exciting parts of the match. Everything else was a dud. This thing was a waste of time. It should have been on Monday Night Raw, to be honest with you. It was just boring. It doesn't set up anything. Maybe it'll work into something for Elimination Chamber where they finally get the goddamn title off of them, but I doubt it. I don't think that this is in any way going to help any of these guys. It certainly doesn't elevate the title at all. It this was just wasted opportunity. Much like the last match, the Raw matches were the weakest on the card. Um, I could go on and on forever about how bad this match was, but whatever. I think my rant about this match has actually been longer than the match itself, just to give you an idea. So finally, we get to the main event, the proper, well-deserved main event, by the way. This match, the Women's Royal Rumble, the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, absolutely should have been the main event and was. Had to be main event. I'm glad they didn't screw that up. That was one of the things in the prediction video. They could not mess this up. It had to work. It had to go without any stupidity or shenanigans or comedy or any of that kind of crap. They had to legitimize the women's division with this match. Not that they aren't legit anyway, but it seems that every time that they make really big advances in the women's division, they do something really stupid to bring it back. Like having James Ellsworth win the first ever Money in the Bank match. In fact, when they did the highlight packages to show off the women's revolution and the women's evolution, they were showing clips of the quote unquote first ever women's Money in the Bank match after the first women's Hell in a Cell match. Well, the clip that they showed of Carmella holding up the briefcase was actually from the second one that they had to redo because people got pissed off about James Ellsworth. Like they had to take a mulligan on the first one because they fucked it up, and they had to have Carmella win it legit, which was fine. So first we get Maria Menounos, who makes her way to the ring, announces Stephanie McMahon as the special guest commentator. Was wholly unnecessary to have her there at all. She added very little to the event. Speaking of adding incredibly little to the event, they next have Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair come out to the ring so they can sit in comfortable chairs to hold their titles. They were literally props throughout the entire match. They barely changed facial expressions. They barely cut away to the two of them for their reactions or what have you. No one looked nervous. No one looked invested. Neither of them looked like they really particularly wanted to be there. They were just there as props to hold their respective titles for SmackDown and Raw over their shoulders. And I hate to say this, they were just there to sit there and look pretty. That's really all that it was. You knew they weren't going to get involved because they were wearing these ridiculous heels that they could barely walk in. So they weren't going to get involved in the match in any way, which, eliminates some of the drama because even though you don't want shenanigans in the match, you can still have sort of that outside influence come into play because it's still within the women's division, done by the women in the division. That's okay. But anyway, so we've you end up with Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch kicking it off for Raw and SmackDown, and I'm not going to break it down quite as much as the men's match. This match was overall pretty good. There were some things, again, with the production that were horrible. A lot of the times they would cut to a camera angle that was very unflattering to the action that was going on in the ring. At least twice they cut to a camera angle where you could clearly see Sasha Banks working over another lady in the corner, and the kicks were missing by a good 18 inches. They weren't even close. I don't know. I don't know why they did that. Who thought that was a good idea, or who thought no one would notice? But yeah, you could see Sasha Banks missing kicks. You could see missed punches. You could see missed everything in the match. It was just terrible. The production was horrible. And especially coming off the fact that they put together this really amazing promo package, that historical package, with like, your Mae Youngs and your Wendy Richters and your Rockin' Robins and your, the history of the women's division and the Hell in the Cell and and then they cut to botches, botch after botch after botch after botch. Lee and I were just shaking our heads like, wow, they're just trying everything that they can to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here because they had the crowd. Not only did they have the crowd, but they had the crowd with their entrance. Obviously, you have your entrance for who's on the main roster. Well, you still need about 11 spots. So um, you get your spots here. You get Lita coming in at number 5. Huge pop from the crowd. Lita looked very rusty, but she still got a huge pop. She still had a couple of eliminations. You get Carrie Sane, who is the Mae Young Classic winner, coming in at number 6. She came in and just absolutely leveled everybody. And yeah, she got a huge pop. She's going to be a big star. I thought it was a bit premature to bring her in because I was going to have her and Asuka kind of feud a little bit down the road, closer to SummerSlam. You kind of want to keep her in the back pocket, sort of thing. But I think Lee definitely had a point. It's you got to fill these spots. You may as well fill it with somebody who's really good. Um, Tamina just sort of highlights. Tamina came in this really weird white outfit. She looked like she was auditioning for a Whitesnake video. It was really fucking weird. Um, Lita hit a big moonsault spot, or on. Okay, how do I put this? They wanted to run the Lita moonsault spot where she hit it onto two women, Sasha and Becky. So Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. She almost fell off the top rope. She almost smacked her forehead on the mat because she didn't quite land it as cleanly as she could have. Thankfully, it wasn't a repeat of the Brock Lesnar shooting star press incident, but yeah, that looked pretty. It looked rusty. Now, of course, the Philadelphia crowd, they love them, their Lita, so they gave her a "You Still Got It" chant. I have to admit, she did pretty well. We thought it was kind of funny that they gave a "You Still Got It" after a nearly completely botched maneuver, but what the hell. And then when she got thrown out by Becky Lynch, the crowd booed her. The crowd booed Becky Lynch, who was like a huge fan favorite. Probably got one of the biggest pops of the night when she was introduced at number 2, but when she eliminated Lita, she got booed hard. And it even kind of took her by surprise a little, I think. So as we go through, we're getting into some more of the competitors are coming in. Not a whole lot is going on. Although you do get a couple of really interesting entrants. Molly Holly got a huge pop. Um, you get Lana, who came in, and there was a huge Rusev Day chant for her. Yeah, it's Michelle McCool was in. Michelle McCool eliminated a ton of people, and Lee kind of speculated that maybe this was payback for all the amount of disrespect they gave to the Undertaker in these types of matches, because the Undertaker never seems to last very long in the Royal Rumble. Only won it once in like his 25+ year career, which seems kind of odd. Vicky Guerrero came back doing her "Excuse Me" gimmick, where, wow, super shrill. I don't know if she had to practice beforehand, but holy crap. She came back, did the "Excuse Me," did her sort of SmackDown general manager authoritarian thing. Everybody who was in the ring ganged up. gently deposited her over the top rope to a very huge pop from the crowd. But it was, yeah, it was an interesting little bit to kind of break up the Rumble a bit. Carmella came in, and at this point now you're starting to get toward the end. You're starting to see who the contenders are, who is left, who is in contention, who isn't. And you get some more legends coming. Well, legends. You get some more callbacks, I suppose. You get your Kelly Kellys. You get Jacqueline, who came back. She looked pretty good, actually. She looked really good and feisty. And then you start to get into, your not your fan favorites, but definitely your favorites to win. Starting with number 22, Nia Jax, which I think was a really good place to put her. I know a lot of other websites were saying, she was going to come in at maybe number 5 or number 6 and clean house and just really kind of take charge until late, late, late in the match and be one of the last two. But I think having her come in later was really, really good. She's fresh. She's taking people out left and right. At one point, maybe about eight ladies are on top of her, just absolutely pummeling on her, ganging up. She explodes from out of the crowd, takes everybody out. It's pretty cool. Um, we get Beth Phoenix coming out a couple spots later. Now, Beth Phoenix was billed as the Glamazon. She was sort of the big bad monster of a monster performer in the women's division during her day, and her and Nia Jax face off. Doesn't end well, particularly for Beth Phoenix. Um, and then you get Asuka coming in at 25, which I think is really good. I didn't like the idea of her coming out at 30, but at 25, I'm okay with that. Now we're starting to get into the last bits. So you've got Mickie James, the Bella Twins come out, Bayley comes out at 29, and at number 30, there had been a lot of speculation as to who was going to take the 30th spot. The biggest rumor, of course, was that former MMA star Ronda Rousey would take up the number 30 spot, come in, have her little Royal Rumble moment, and that would sort of kickstart her WWE career. As it turns out, even though there was a lot of denial about this from all parties, 7-time women's champion Trish Stratus made her way to the ring in the number 30 spot, and she looked pretty good. Obviously she kept in good shape. Um, Plastic surgery, wow, she had a lot of work done, or she looked like she'd had a lot of work done. I don't know if it was the makeup she was wearing, but wow, she looked different. She looked like she had like cheek implants and Botox and a lot of work done. It wasn't necessarily flattering work all around, but she looked good in the ring. Definitely came out in a different attire than what we were used to seeing her in. Actually, that was sort of an ongoing thing with the women in the Rumble. Most of the women had changed their ring attire fairly significantly. Becky Lynch changed to a one-piece. Mickie James lost sort of the long tights for like short tights and boots, although those flares around her boots still look absolutely horrible. Um, Actually, probably be easier to count the number of women who didn't change their ring attire. Bayley, Nia Jax, Carmella. Well, no, even Carmella made significant changes to her wardrobe. So yeah, it was. Anyway, Trish Stratus comes in at number 30, and then things start to get pretty serious. Trish looked pretty good. She hit a lot of her signature moves. She had her little stare down with Mickie James that she'd had a huge rivalry with when they were both in WWE together during the initial women's division, or sort of the Attitude Era women's division, or post Attitude Era, depending on what you want to call it. But when the two of them were in the WWE together, they kind of had their little renewed rivalry. Trish Stratus eliminated Mickie James from the Rumble, which got a little bit of a surprised reaction from the crowd, maybe a little bit of booing there. And then we started to weed things down. The women all sort of ganged up on Nia Jax and eliminated her. which really made the Rumble a foregone conclusion, because even though there were still about 6 or 7 women in the ring at this point, you knew who was going to win. It was going to be Asuka, no matter what. And ultimately, yeah, we get to the Bella Twins and Asuka. You knew the Bella Twins were not going to win over Asuka. It doesn't matter that one's married to Daniel Bryan and one's married to John Cena. Does not make a difference. Asuka obviously is the future star of the company. Or, she already is a star of the company, but she's the one that they're going to hitch their wagon to long term. So you knew that she was going to win the match. Now, remember how I said that there were inconsistencies with the way that these matches were presented? Well, at the end of this match, rather than having someone come into the ring to ask Asuka which champion that she wanted to face, the two champions got up off their chairs, which is the first thing that they had done all night, and they get into the ring while Asuka is doing sort of a celebratory dance, and Asuka backs into Alexa Bliss at first, then backs into Charlotte Flair. The two champions take their titles off their shoulders, lift them in the air. Asuka's kind of looking back and forth, looking like she's gonna, she's got a little sly smile on her face, like she's about to make her big announcement. And Joan Jett's bad reputation starts blasting over the PA, and out comes Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey makes her way to the ring to a big holy shit chant from the crowd in attendance in Philadelphia. They're loving this, but the segment goes on way too long and is confusing as hell. No one in the ring has a microphone. Ronda comes in, looks Charlotte up and down, looks Alexa Bliss up and down, looks Asuka up and down. Neither of them seem particularly impressed with Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey offers her hand as a handshake to Asuka. Asuka slaps it away. And Ronda Rousey points to the WrestleMania sign maybe about 20 times. It was ridiculous. Like Lee especially was laughing at how often Ronda Rousey was pointing at that WrestleMania sign silently saying, "Hey, I'm going to WrestleMania. Guess what, guys? I'm going to be part of WrestleMania too. Did you guys know I was going to be part of WrestleMania?" That's kind of what it came off as. I didn't mention it at the time, but kind of on reflection, if you were to have the WrestleMania point at the WrestleMania sign drinking game, just this segment alone would have incurred a severe drunkenness in most people, including some real professional alcoholics that I happen to know from back in my college days. But yeah, it was just, and it went on forever. And then Ronda Rousey left the ring. She walked out to the announcer table and offered to shake Stephanie McMahon's hand. Of course, at WrestleMania 31, Ronda Rousey, kind of did a segment with Stephanie McMahon and kind of threw her out of the ring and whatnot. They shake hands. Rousey makes her way up the ramp. As she gets to the ramp, she points at the sign at least 3 more times. They cut back into the ring, and the pay-per-view fades out. Now, that is the Royal Rumble 2018, and of course I'm crawling up again. I'm approaching the 30-minute mark for this video as well. I'm going to cut this one, but there will be a part 3 as to how I would have booked some of, given the ending of the women's match that they had, what could they have done with it to make it better? How could they? First of all, I'll give more details on the fantasy booking thing that I had in mind with how I would have booked the Royal Rumble, or some of the ways you could have booked the Royal Rumble women's match, because it really had the most potential for intrigue for long-term storylines. I would also go through what I would do with this particular finish to clean it up and make it a little less awkward. So we'll see you in the next video. You guys take it easy.